Hey, welcome to the Eddie Hyatt podcast. I'm your host and teacher, Eddie Hyatt, and I'm so glad to be back with you today as we delve into part two of our series on UFOs, the Nephilim, and extraterrestrials. You know, I was motivated to do this because of all the fanfare surrounding leading up to the government release of files on UFOs that have been kept secret. And there was so much speculation about it. And even from some preachers making statements that I feel a little bit irresponsible, obviously sensationalized, that which I'm going to show you again today has turned out not to really be accurate. And for example, I'll just read one, and I'll mention their names because I mean it's not anything private. I mean, this is all there out there on the internet. But Perry Stone, who is a prominent TV Tennessee-based Pentecostal evangelist, he's with the Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, a good organization, good denomination. I've preached in their churches in times past. Anyway, Perry Stone, he claimed that his friend told him that a group of pastors were recently briefed by U.S. officials to prepare their congregations for the disclosure of UFOs and extraterrestrials. He went on to say, I'm not going to go into great detail, but there were a large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had, said Stone, who did not identify his source in his April 27th video. Stone said his friend told him that some of those in the meetings were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released. In other words, is this not conjuring up fear? Is this not fear mongering? Oh, you're going. In other words, this there are some things coming out. You're going to have to get your people ready to handle this. He goes on, and some of it has to do with crafts that have been discovered that are not allegedly a part of our planet, and the materials they're made of are not part of our planet. Very strange reptilian looking creatures and other things that almost sound like something out of a science fiction movie. Oh my goodness. Well, then I don't know if this is the person he was talking about, but this came out in the open afterwards. Pastor and YouTuber Larry Ragland has apologized after suggesting that he was told in a secret meeting with U.S. officials that aliens had invented Christianity. Isn't that crazy? In a clip circulating on social media, Ragland said that a very well-known congressman from Missouri had called into the private meeting for pastors. On the speakerphone, this sitting powerful member of Congress said, they are preparing to tell us that they are from another dimension, that they are our creator, and that these beings, these aliens, what are you going to call them, that they were the ones that seeded us here, that there is no such thing as God. Jesus was invented by them. The Bible's invented by them. So they're saying that this is what is going to come out, that the aliens have said, and so on. Well, it comes out that this congressman, he posted on, he said, I never said any such thing. I called in because they asked me to, and I just thanked them for their support. These are pastors that had supported him. He's a Christian. And so this pastor, Larry Ragland, he realized that he had to cover his tracks. So he apologized. And basically what he said was that he didn't make a distinction between what the congressman said and his own ideas. He presented it in such a way that it sounded like the congressman was saying this, but he admitted, no, those were just my own ideas. So all of this has caused a lot of concern, a lot of confusion, a lot of speculation, and so on. So anyway, out of all of this, I felt stirred in my heart to share along these lines. So I hope you'll look at episode 1. Which is there and is available there on the the podcast there on the site. And we covered some really important issues, but also dealing with the fact that if we want to be saved from the deception that Jesus predicted for the days in which we live, which we covered that very thoroughly, we must be lovers of truth. The truth will keep us free from deception. Now, today, I just want to focus mostly on what has come out in these files that the government began releasing on Friday. Now, I by no means have gone through all of these. I mean, I guess there probably will be eventually thousands of them. But what I did on Friday, I went to that website and I just went through clicking, looking at the videos, reading their analysis of them, and so on. And I got a feel of what is there. And I'll tell you, there was nothing shocking to me. There was nothing that challenged my faith in any way. Nothing like that at all. Now, there's some things, some very interesting readings there. Yes, absolutely. And let me just read some of the things that I came across and I copied, not everything, but there were some things that caught my interest. One of them was, and I remember this astronaut's name, Buzz Aldrin. I don't know, he may still be alive, I'm not sure. But he was a part of the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. And so he talks about, let me put on my reading glasses. Buzz Aldrin talks about seeing some things that they couldn't explain. He said the first unusual thing that we saw, I guess, was one day out or something pretty close to the moon. It had a sizable dimension to it. So we put the monocular on it, monocular as opposed to binoculars, a monocular, a telescope, single eye telescope. He said we put the telescope on it. The crew speculated, now they weren't absolutely sure, but they speculated that it could have been the S-4B stage of the Saturn V launch vehicle. Now, note, if he's talking about the launch vehicle for the spacecraft they're on, or if it's another one that had gone up. And so what you have to realize is, they say, well, it could be a leftover from the launch. Now, I don't know if they still launch satellites this way, but I remember from years ago, there would be different stages. And the rocket would take off, and there'd be a stage one. It would get them out into space. It would burn out, drop off. Then there would be stage two that would take them further out, and then it would drop off. And then however many stages were needed to get them to the orbit or to the moon or wherever they needed to go. So they speculated. They weren't sure, but hey, it could be a leftover from one of the stages from a launch vehicle. He says the other observation that I made accumulated gradually. I don't know whether I saw it the first night, but I'm sure I saw it the second night. I was trying to go to sleep with all the lights out. I observed what I thought were little flashes inside the cabin, spaced a couple minutes apart. He also observed what appeared to be a fairly bright light source, which we tentatively ascribed to a possible laser. And so these are things, I mean, it's nothing major. Who knows what these little light sources might have been. One Harvard professor who delves into studies these things, he says that some of these things, these light flashes, can come even from inside the cameras and so on. Another thing that I might just mention here, let's see. I wanted to read, here's another one that's a little more dramatic that I decided to copy off. And this document is a U.S. Department of State diplomatic cable from the U.S. Embassy in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. It was sent to the Secretary of State in Washington, D.C. on January the 31st, 1994. And this is what they describe. On January 27, 1994, one Tajik pilot and 3 American citizens encountered a UAP, an unidentified flying object. and they're using some different terminology here, but it's a UFO. Uh, they were flying in a 747 jet at 41,000 feet over Kazakhstan. They said the object was a bright light of enormous intensity and approached over the horizon to the east at great speed and a much higher altitude. Several pictures were taken of the craft, making 90-degree turns, turning corkscrews, and maneuvering in circles at great rates of speed. Object was reported as resembling a bullet in flight. Visual estimation of the contrails, that would be the trails leave behind. You've seen them in the sky with jets flying up real high. Visual estimation of the contrails was at 100,000 feet, which was too high to leave contrails by ordinary craft. And so these are some of the things that that they were describing in these reports and in these videos. And I even posted one of the pictures of I think it's the Apollo 17. They took a picture there from the moon. On the horizon, there were 3 dots of light. They didn't know what they were. What could they be? And they never did figure it out. They never did come up with a reason. There is one thing that I think is worth noting, is that all of what's called the space junk or space debris that up there in the atmosphere in orbit around the Earth. There have been thousands of satellites and things, not only from the U.S. government, but Russia, different countries, and now private companies like SpaceX, Elon Musk. They're putting up satellites for communication, different purposes. There's just recently read about another company in California. They're putting up satellites. And there are many satellites that they're no longer workable. They're not functioning anymore, but yes, they're still up there circling around in space. So I looked this up on AI, Google AI, and it says space debris or space junk refers to all non-functional human-made objects, including defunct satellites, spent rocket stages, and fragments orbiting Earth or re-entering the atmosphere. Now, when they re-enter the atmosphere, the friction with the atmosphere causes them to glow and even catch on fire, so they can appear to be like a meteorite coming down to Earth. Or who knows what kind of visual they may make, depending on how large they are and what kind of material they are made of. So this goes on to say it poses all of this space debris. It says it poses a severe collision risk with millions of particles. Did you hear that? Millions of particles ranging from tiny paint flecks to large debris traveling at speeds of 18,000 miles per hour. So there's a lot of space junk up there. And every once in a while, they come down and they fall to Earth. Now, the very first flying saucer UFO that I ever saw, and I'll tell you what it turned out to be, I was in probably my mid-20s and early 20s. And I had, it was before I went to Bible school, before I met Sue, and I was preaching at a little church in a little town called Bache, Oklahoma, in eastern Oklahoma. And I was staying in the home of the pastor, whose home was about 8 miles from the church in the town of McAllister. And so one night after the service, I'm driving back to his house, and I see through my windshield up in the sky, there is this circle of lights, and they're rotating in a circle. I mean, they're bright lights. They're rotating in a circle. And man, I am driving along, and it's obviously moving, but it's not moving very fast. And finally, I get to a place. I'm so intrigued. I pull over, and I get out of my car to see this thing more clearly. And I mean, I'm a little bit in awe, man. What is this? These the lights are quite close together. And they're like on a wheel. They're in a circle, and they're rotating, not real fast, but a constant speed rotating around. And that's all that I can see. Now, that's been probably 55 years ago. It seems, in my memory that I tried to contact, I don't know, that night or the next day, the newspaper or the police or something. But what came out was that this was like a local businessman who was running for political office. And so this was a thing that he came up with. And it wasn't clear if it was his airplane or a friend's, but it was just like one of these small crop duster airplanes. And he had rigged up this turnstile, put these lights on it and so on, and was driving around over the city at night. Well, it got the attention he wanted because it got written up, I think, on the front page of the McAllister newspaper, explaining what this was, and this was so-and-so, and he's running for this office and so on. And so anyway, that was my first experience ever with any kind of a UFO. And if you want to know how I would respond if I ever ran into, and I don't expect to, and I'll tell you why in a moment, to an alien from outer space, I have no fear of such a thing. Here's how I told how I would respond in yesterday's session. But the question is, what are these things? Now, some of them are probably related to the weather. Some of them, I am sure, are manifestations of spiritual phenomena, maybe angels from heaven, angels from God. Some of them, no doubt, no question in mind, they are demonic manifestations. Also, I'm convinced that many of these can be explained by natural forces, natural phenomenon. Well, just like the one, that experience that I had, but like the Buzz Aldrin, they decided this is probably this thing out there. We're not sure what it is, but we think it's probably a stage off of a rocket that's been left behind, and now it's circling the Earth. It's in orbit. There are, I think of the Northern Lights. You know, the Northern Lights. These, and they're really stupendous and amazing further north. Now, sometimes we can see a little bit of them down this far south, but you go up in the northern states and up into Canada, they are amazing at certain times in the wintertime. And these bright colors dancing and shimmering and moving and so on. And it's caused by solar winds from the sun. Solar winds, they go out very rapidly, moving from the sun, solar winds. And they would burn us to a crisp if it wasn't for our atmosphere that provides a shroud, and the electromagnetic field that provides a shield around the earth that protects us from such things. And when this solar winds, which are electronic particles, when they strike our atmosphere and strike the nitrogen and the oxygen that makes up our atmosphere, they turn into just warm, pleasant winds, but also they produce all of these beautiful shimmering and dancing lights that we know as the Northern Lights. Now, could this kind of phenomenon happen on a more localized area? I don't know, but I'm just telling you, the Northern Lights give us an example of a natural phenomenon that's caused by natural forces that produces amazing visuals that amaze us and cause us to wonder. So could these things happen on a more local level? I suppose they probably could. My friends Charles and Delilah Hicks in Paris, Texas, I asked them to recount to me something that they saw in their yard one night. And the way they describe it, as I remember it, there were colorful lights, and it was like there were two wheels, and they were moving and crisscrossing. And then at times it was like they would all merge together into one light, and then they would go upward, and then they would spread out and divide again, and so on. And this went on for about an hour. What was it? I don't know. They didn't have any sense of what it was, but there was no sense of fear or intrepidation about it. But it was an interesting and amazing sight. Some of these things also, I think, can be people's wild imaginations. People's imaginations run wild. We live in a culture where reality, with all of these science fiction movies and Star Wars and everything, that people are geared to believe in all of this sort of thing, in these aliens. And then even in the church, people's imaginations run wild. Now, God gave us imagination for a purpose, for a reason, so that we can imagine and think beyond where we are and think about where we could be, to imagine how things could be different. But when it comes to the place where we use our imaginations to live in a fantasy, unreal world, my friends, that is not good, and that's where we get off the track. And I know of people, I've met them, and I was reading about this person who claims to be a prophetess, and a lot of people follow her. She claims to go to heaven every day, and all kinds of things that she saw in heaven, children riding dinosaurs, and even Superman giving flying lessons. And I think, Superman in heaven? Don't you know that Superman is a mythical figure created in the comic books and then picked up and taken to another level by Hollywood? Did you also see the Lone Ranger and Tonto? No, this is not real. This person is living in a fantasy world that they have created for some reason or another. I know of one church, they were teaching people how to go to the third heaven. You know, Paul had an experience where he said, and this is one of his Corinthian letters. He said he wouldn't even name himself. He was very cautious about sharing this. But he said, I know a man, whether in the body or out of the body. He said, I don't know. But 14 years ago, such a one was called up to the third heaven and heard things that are not lawful for him to repeat. And so Paul had this one experience, and when he shared about it, it had been 14 years before. But now today we have people that are claiming that they've learned how to go to the third heaven every day at their own initiative. No, you haven't. No, you are living in a fantasy world. You are living in a Alice in Wonderland world. You have allowed your mind to not discern between reality and that which is fantasy. Oh, my friends, how we need to guard our minds and guard our hearts and not be led away but because the devil, hey, the mind, as has often been said, the mind is the devil's playground. And that kind of undisciplined mind and undisciplined thinking will open the door to the demonic. So I don't doubt that some of these things are people's imaginations running wild, overactive imaginations. I do not now. Now, many of them obviously are spiritual, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll get into the Nephilim, but here's why I do not believe. I don't have to read that. What I was going to read. I do not believe that there are any such things as aliens from another planet, another galaxy coming here. And I will explain to you why. Now, I had a little something here. Yeah, I think this is it. There are. Oh, I need to read to you some of the summaries of some of the things of the things with these with the things that they have discovered. Right in here somewhere. Just bear. Yeah, here it is. So a website where people, this is a government website where people send videos and reports of UFOs and these sorts of things. And these people there, they analyze these. They call themselves experts. They analyze these for what they think they are and so on. And it's called the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. It's a government run a department of the U.S. government. Now, the initials AARO. Now, what that stands for, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. It's referring to these extraterrestrial UFOs and all of this. They're dealing with this. And they say our team of experts leads the U.S. government's efforts to address unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena. Same thing as what we call a UFO, unidentified flying object. We do this using a rigorous scientific framework and a data-driven approach. Now, as I was looking at these videos and reports, and then reading their analysis, these people, these experts, their analysis of them, there was one statement that I saw again and again and again. So I copied it. I thought it was worth repeating. And let me read it to you. So these videos and these sightings and things, that I was clicking on and seeing and everything, again and again, this is what I would read in their analysis, often, I think, probably ending with this. ARO assesses with high confidence that the footage depicts the presence of a physical object. The object's morphological features, performance characteristics, and behaviors are unremarkable and do not warrant further analysis. In other words, we don't know what this is, but its features are unremarkable and do not require any further analysis. And then they also make this statement. They ask the question. They say, AARO, we use a rigorous scientific framework and data-driven approach to better understand UFOs. We will follow science wherever it leads. Has the department found any evidence of extraterrestrial technology? No. So they say themselves that they have not found any evidence of any extraterrestrial technology with all of these files that they have been going through for years. So I do not believe that there are any aliens from another planet, another galaxy that's coming down here trying to contact Earth. I don't believe that at all. These are spiritual manifestations. I believe, and I'm going to shock some of you, but you listen to me. I think you'll get this. And scientists are beginning to say this. I believe that very well the Earth could be the center of the universe. Now, I know somebody will say, "Oh, that's what the ancients used to believe." And Galileo and Copernicus, they proved this was wrong by their telescope, that the universe wasn't revolving around the Earth. Yes, that is true. However, with these massive new telescopes that they have put up in space in orbit around the Earth above the atmosphere, the first one was the Hubble telescope, and more recently the James Webb telescope, that peer hundreds of billions of light years into space. It boggles our minds. Now, a light year is the speed that light travels in a year. Light travels, 182, 186,000 miles per second? That's fast enough to go around the world 7 times in 1 second. Our one galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, if you were to travel across it at the speed of light, if you could turn on a beam of light on one side of the galaxy, it would take it 100,000 years to get across this one galaxy. But then when you got to the edge of our galaxy, you would travel another 2 million years, and you would get to another galaxy, which is larger than the Milky Way galaxy, called Andromeda. Astronomers estimate that it may have as many as 1 trillion stars. They estimate the Earth has probably 200 billion stars. But Andromeda, 1 trillion stars. But then with these massive telescopes, as they look out, there are not thousands, not millions, but billions and even trillions of other galaxies out through the universe. No sign of any end. So some are saying, hey, You could sit at any point in the universe, and it appears, and looking out in all directions, it appears that you are at the center, no matter where you may be. Wow. Now, these telescopes, they have these large radio telescopes that listen for any kind of radio type signals from outer space. And today, with the modern technology, they've been able to connect these radio telescopes together, even in different countries, to magnify and amplify their receptivity power. But with these massive radio telescopes, with the massive ocular telescopes, no sign of any intelligent life out there anywhere. Now, the Bible says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And everything we see is that the earth is the center of God's attention and God's affection. So God created the heavens and the earth. Most of the attention is given to creating the earth there in Genesis 1, and then creating the crown of his creation was the human species, the man and woman, Genesis 1:26, whom he created in his image and in his likeness. And God would come down before the fall. He'd come down in the cool of the day and have communion with them. Oh, obviously God's attention was here on earth and with the human beings he had made. It says in passing, he made the stars also. He made the stars also. And our minds are boggled at the vastness of space and the universe. But listen to this. We know that our solar system, our Earth solar system, is finely tuned that makes life possible. For example, we have a star, we call it the sun. It's exactly the right size. It's exactly the right age. It's burning at exactly the right temperature for life to exist on Earth. It's the exact distance that it needs to be from the Earth. The Earth is the exact size with the exact ratio of land and water to preserve life. It has a precise atmosphere made up of 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, and then a few other elements. Perfect, exactly what is needed. It's got a magnetic field around us that protects us from other objects coming in and striking the earth. I mean, everything is finely tuned. But now, cosmologists, astronomers, astrophysicists are saying that not only is our Earth and our solar system finely tuned for life on Earth, they are saying that the entire universe is finely tuned to preserve life on this planet. Hugh Ross, a well-known astrophysicist, who's also a Christian, he talks about this, and he says the whole universe has been finely tuned. We can see it more clearly because we're here close. The earth, the sun, the planets around us are absolutely necessary. The whole solar system is designed to preserve life on earth. But Hugh Ross points out, and he's not the only one, he even quotes non-Christian secular scientists who are being challenged by this. The whole universe seems to be finely tuned, geared towards sustaining life on this planet. He makes this statement. What this means is that the approximately 100 billion trillion stars, no more and no less, are needed for life to be possible here on this earth. Oh, yes. My friends, this earth is the center of God's attention. We We are the apple of his eye. This is why it is such a terrible thing that we allowed an intruder to come in, our first parents to come in, and our first parents allowed themselves to be deceived and led away from our Creator, from our God who created us in his image and likeness. God did not provide redemption for the angels who fell, but he did provide redemption for humanity that was created in his image and likeness, that is the object of his affection, for whom he designed the entire universe for our goodness, for our life, so that we could live and have life and enjoy life and know him. I'll mention one other thing. An astronomer, I think there are two of them. I used to have the book. I think I gave it to someone, but there's a video on this. It's called The Privileged Planet. They make the same point in a different way, saying that our Earth is uniquely positioned in this galaxy to be able to explore and observe the universe. That if this Earth was any place else, we would not have the view that we have to explore the stars and space, but that we are uniquely placed in this galaxy for exploration and for learning about the creation. Oh God, this earth, yes, the whole universe has been designed for planet Earth. Oh, how we need to take dominion and drive out the demons and possess the land that God has given us. How the world needs to return back to God, our Creator. And I believe that is happening today. So I'm going to have to bring this to a close. So I do not believe UFOs, flying saucers, I do not believe this has anything whatsoever to do with visitors from another planet, from another galaxy. I believe some of it can be explained by natural phenomena, but I also believe that many of them are manifestations from the realm of the spirit. You see, there is another world out there, the realm of the spirit. And there are good spirits, there are angels of God, far more numerous than the bad ones. But there is an evil realm also. And in the next section, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about the Nephilim and what we need to understand about that word that is being thrown around today, and so much speculation and theories about that word, the Nephilim. So this is Eddie Hyatt. I hope you're getting something out of this. I hope you're learning something. And most of all, I hope to relieve any fear, any concern that you've had about what we're going to learn from these secret files the government has released. I don't think nothing that's going to challenge our faith, nothing at all, because we know who we are. We know who put us here. We know who has redeemed us, and we're walking with him. And we're going to see his plan, his purpose fulfilled in our lives and in the earth. Hey, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. God bless.